Hi there. First off, thank you for holding this out here in the Antelope Valley. We have a serious housing problem out on Edwards Air Force Base and the surrounding areas for our troops.
Yeah.
What do you plan to do to help and rectify that situation?
Great question. So on Edwards Air Force Base, I've been out there a few times. We work closely not only with Edwards, but also Plant 42 for their infrastructure needs. Now, it's a little difficult because they have to go through big Air Force, which then has to go through big Department of Defense. So it's not like they can come to me and say, hey, Mike, we need 20 new homes. It's got to go through their chain of command. We support them within the Defense Appropriations Committees. But to put it in perspective, and I've seen this firsthand, a lot of houses on military bases have asbestos in them. They have, when I was going through flight school, an entire family was killed because of carbon monoxide poisoning from an old heating unit, and they didn't have carbon monoxide detectors on base housing. So these are the types of things that we don't have enough resources for. This is why a lot of troops are not rejoining, re-enlisting when they get to their commitments. The quality of life needs to be addressed, and on-base housing is a big deal. Healthcare on base as well, and the resources. So there's that lane. The lane, which is the housing off base, is an issue that we all feel, right? There's not enough housing right now. The challenge we have in California is that before you even break ground on a new home, the state levies about $200,000 to $250,000 in permit and licensing and regulatory red tape fees. So before you even start digging the foundation, pouring the foundation, you've already spent about $200,000 for a typical, call it 1,700 square foot single family home. This accounts for the difference in home values between California and Arizona. When you look at a chart of those two states, they parallel each other, they're both going up because of demand, but the difference in the average cost is associated with the fees and the regulations. So if we want to truly mitigate the housing crisis in California, and I mean that not in terms of homelessness, but in terms of the number of homes on the market, and this also benefits the folks at Edwards Air Force Base, we need to cut the red tape, lower the regulations so that people can actually build homes, so that developers are incentivized to come in here, open tract homes like they have in the past. We've got a lot of beautiful tract home developments in the Antelope Valley. You don't see that happening right now because the developers can't sell the house for enough money to actually make a profit by the time they pay the state and county and local administrative fees. So for the commercial stuff, it's the same thing. We've got to lower the regulations and figure out how we can incentivize people to rejoin this market space. The federal defense stuff is a different bucket of money that we are chasing and trying to get better resources on base for base housing. Appreciate the question.
Hi, Mike. There's a lot of talk about the banks closing. We just got a notice today, I think, that a couple more banks are closing, about 40,000, and it's going to, from the local even area, is going to be closing.
Yep.
Any fear with or any recommendation for people that's got a lot of money tied up into these banks with what's going to happen?
Yeah, so the reason banks are at risk right now is driven primarily by this inflation problem. A lot of banks have made some riskier decisions than others. They've invested in things that have a 2 to 3% return rather than something that's actually above where treasuries are. Treasuries right now, which is what the government pays, are about 5.5%, which is a pretty healthy return, but it's inverting the profit for banks. So they are becoming insolvent because of these bad decisions. Not every bank, it's not the big banks necessarily, but in my opinion, this is an opportunity for the big banks, unfortunately, to swallow up the mom and pop banks and consolidate, and then we get to more monopoly in the banking industry. The question about how you protect yourself if you have money is to make sure that you're not putting all your chips on one number, so to speak, or all your money in one pot that goes beyond the FDIC protection requirements, right? So go home, check your bank accounts, even if it's a 401k that you've been building over 40 years, you may be over that 250,000 threshold, and if you are, that is susceptible to not being covered by FDIC insurance if that bank goes under, okay? I've spoken with the Fed. He's going to continue to raise interest rates until we see inflation come down, and that's really the only lever we've got. Now that we've spent all this money and the cash is starting to hit the street, we have all of this cash for not enough demand, with not enough supply, and the demand is basically driving prices up the way it has been, okay? So The only lever that we have now is for the Fed to raise rates. It's like a race car. If you got a stuck throttle, you're going down the straightaway, you're going into turn one, you're going 200 miles an hour. It's like, the Fed's going, hey, you got a stuck throttle and your brakes don't work since Congress can't figure out how to curb spending. I'm going to pop your tires for you, right? Like, no, that's not the best way to slow me down, but that's literally the only thing we have now. He's actually intentionally hurting the economy to slow it down right now by raising rates. So the banks are unfortunately paying some of the price for that because they're now having to pay higher yields on some of their vehicles that they are frankly losing money on. So spread your money out if you're above those thresholds. Good question. All right.
Okay, thank you. I wrote it down because I get nervous. I pay taxes, some of which go to fund drug companies and grants and things for their research. And then they produce drugs that I need. And then they charge me 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 1,000 times what it costs them to make them. It makes my life as a senior really hard.
Yeah.
And I have an autoimmune disease I've lived with for 40 years. This affects me every week. And every time you vote against being able to negotiate drug prices, you vote against me. So I came today to ask you when you're going to help me.
I'm not opposed to negotiating drug prices. What I'm opposed to is the federal government mandating a certain price, because what the unintended consequence, by the way, I completely understand. My father passed away of cancer last year, and we were struggling to figure out how to, he couldn't afford it either. And it was heartbreaking to watch and to see the price on these pills. You're like, come on, so someone's gouging us here, right? It's not just true for the pills, it's the entire healthcare system, right? But what happens is if you have the federal government come in and say, thou shalt not charge more than this amount, okay? And what you're gonna see are fewer companies actually participate in that market, whether it's a single drug, multiple pharmaceutical drugs, even healthcare providers, hospitals. Every time the government says, we're gonna cap you at this, you're gonna see people flee that market. So what you're seeing, remember the 4 C's, competition and capitalism. We need more competition in these spaces. There's guys, Mark Cuban, right? Saw what was happening with insulin and decided to come into that market space because he realized he could actually deliver an insulin pill that isn't $100 and that is, teens of dollars, $15 or so, and he is now making money on that. But it's because the government is allowing him to do that and not regulating him to death. And he's actually providing a cheaper insulin source for us now. So these are the types of things. We need more participation, not less, and we need less government regulation on these things, not less. And
How do you do that though? Because I have a problem now.
right, yeah. Unfortunately, and this is one of these issues, is this. There's a lot of healthcare programs right now that don't provide the service. A lot of hospitals are not actually looking out for the interest of the patients themselves, right? They're chasing a bottom line as well. So the short answer is I don't know what the solution is, right? I wish I did, and I'm willing to listen if anyone has solutions to fixing this out of control healthcare crisis. I'm all ears. If you've got ideas, bring them forward and help us figure out how to do this.
We used to negotiate in the 90s.
People are pushing back against canceling Obamacare, but Obamacare didn't work clearly. If it's still out of control pricing, then Obamacare wasn't the panacea. And this is one of these issues that we need. There's really 2 issues that require the executive branch to lean forward into, right? A president that runs on lowering health care and eliminating our nation's debt, or starting to chip away at our nation's debt at least, is what's required for this. Because the Senate alone won't do it, the House, one party won't do it, and the other party's in a thin majority, because going after Obamacare is such a sensitive issue. Injecting some of these solutions may not be popular or executable as well. So I know that the solution is more competition, more participants, and less government regulation. And I'm open to sitting down with you, and if there's anyone that wants to participate in this, we can get a roundtable together on what we can do to actually get the results to get healthcare costs down, because it's insane. It's out of control right now. When you insure your car, you pay, depending on your driving record, you pay anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a year. And you're paying $5 a month. Who said that?
It's because I'm paying for everybody else's mistakes.
The point is, though, is that when you have
I'll
car
talk to her
insurance,
afterwards.
you're covered for an incident that would induce about $400,000 of damage, right? Whether it's a hospital bill or damage to your car or the other vehicle, but you're not paying $20,000 a year for this insurance, and you're not getting grinded on the cost when you go to get reimbursed. The difference between auto insurance, even though the price is in the same coordinate system in terms of what you're covered, $400,000 is a lot of coverage. The difference between that auto insurance and the healthcare insurance is that there's dozens of participants in the car insurance world, and there's like 3, 4 real ones in the health insurance world. Okay, you can't turn on the TV without seeing the Geico lizard and the caveman and all these Progressive Flow. There's hundreds of car insurance providers and not enough healthcare insurance providers. So we can go offline and I'm happy to push this. This is a huge issue, obviously, that affects a lot of people. It's not a simple answer.
Because John's his buddy.
I take drug money to, not as far as I know, I'm not aware of taking drug money from pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, we'd have to go through the list. I don't want to talk about that in a campaign issue on an official role, but we can go through our donors, especially any PACs. They're all public information. We're happy to share that information. By the way, I can say that anyone who donates, it doesn't change the way I vote or what I believe in, right? Anyone who thinks that that's a thing, you got to be really, well, I don't want to get into the politics of campaign. We need campaign finance reform. I agree. So we got some issues there, but I'm not going to get into every single campaign issue in the official capacity. Happy to chat offline.
Citizens United ended that.
All right, next tickets will be 284181, 284169, 284189, and we'll do one more, 284192.
There you go. Okay, really good questions asked. Any over answer John's.
It's like Price is Right. It's like a really toned down Price is Right here. Yeah. Bob Barker died. You guys see that?
I shared my brother's episode afterwards because he and his friends went to.
All right.
Bob got the biggest kick out of him.
My name is Evan Coffin. I'm a beneficiary of Targeted Hire programs. I'm a student ambassador for Paving the Way, Lancaster Worker Educational Resource Center, and Jobs to Move America.
Great.
I'm employed at BYD right now. I'm a graduate for the pre-apprenticeship, and I'm currently in the apprenticeship. The question that I had for you is that there's language in the FAA Reauthorization Act that would destroy jobs at BYD. What are you willing to do to protect over 600 jobs at BYD?
Which language are you referring to?
I would have to ask my colleague. Okay.
So it depends on what language you're talking about. I'm not going to, blank
It's because
check
it's
a
Chinese
response
company.
to that.
It's about jobs.
Yeah. So here's yeah. I'm familiar with that language. So yep, familiar with it. So not the rail stock language. Rolling stock. Yeah, rolling stock. So the issue, by the way, I've been to BYD. I think it's a great product. I think the electric vehicle market, especially for buses, is a great thing. I respect that they bring jobs to the local area. And I've gone out of my way to sit with corporate BYD, okay, and have conversations about, because before I support this language, and I'm trying to get to a point where I can support this language, the problem is when I sit down with your management, your leadership, they can't tell me where the money's going. They can't show me or prove to me that the money created, the revenue from BYD does not go back to mainland China. I've gotten 40 pages of documentation from BYD, and they have not been able to substantiate and show me that this money.
Report from O'Melveny and Myers that showed exactly.
You haven't.
Yes, we did.
We've had legal review it, and we haven't seen that answer. So you're willing to commit to me that none of the BYD revenue is going back to mainland China?
The money goes to the workers.
That's a very simple answer.
But
the money goes to the workers. You're paying the labor here, but a Chinese company in the hard. What's that? Owned by some Americans. Yeah, it's got partial ownership.
so what's the
But
problem?
the CEO is who? is a Chinese, it matters, here's why it matters. Okay,
I guess we don't
here's
like
why it matters.
capitalism.
I thought we were beyond this, but here's why it matters, guys. I want the 600 workers at BYD to have a job. 700.
No, you
right?
don't.
And I trust me, I want an American company to come in and look at BYD and go, I want to own it, okay? Whether it's GM or Tesla or someone along those lines, to come in and go, I want to own it. The challenge we have right now is that the product you sell is creating revenue that goes back to China, which is actually our existential pure threat right now, okay? So I'm happy to sit down again, if you guys want to walk me through the document again and show me where that has happened, but we've asked in very clear language, is any of this money going back to mainland China, okay? And the answer is, you tell me no, but you can't show me, that should be on a public disclosure somewhere. And here's the thing, guys, we cannot afford to help China right now, okay? China steals between...
Capitalism only when we support it.
And also trying to protect you guys, right? Because you have a good product, you have a good job. You don't think that's true? I mean, you guys, look, China will come in and sign joint venture agreements with American companies. They'll do what I call rob, replicate, and replace. Okay. By the way, you know, these buses are operating here next to Plant 42, Edwards Air Force Base. I'm not sure where all the data is going that's coming from these things, so I have security concerns as well about that. Okay. So what they do is they sign an agreement with you, they allow you access to the public market, then they rob your intellectual property, they replicate that widget with something slightly cheaper or better, and then they replace you in the Chinese market space. They're now doing that here in the United States as well, okay? About $400 billion, you haven't been able to prove that to me. I'm not saying it's you guys, okay?
We're publicly traded companies.
There's a lot of publicly traded companies that are, so, I'm happy to meet with you guys again. I'm happy to meet with you guys again. I'm answering the gentleman's question right now. Will I support the language or fight or help combat the language in the NDA? By the way, I did that. I've gone down and I've talked to the guys that wrote the language down in Texas on the rolling stock language. And in the end, I've asked for very specific data to put me at ease that this money is not going to the CCP. I don't mean your salaries, I don't mean the investments here in the Antelope Valley. I mean back to mainland China at the top line, the bottom line profit that the corporation generates out of this facility, okay? I haven't seen that. So
That's okay.
I will not support any company whose financial disclosure
He hasn't
shows
answered shit.
net profit going back to mainland China.
So you don't support capitalism, as simple as that. Just because the company's in China doesn't mean they're the Chinese company. They're American.
Show me where that's not happening on your books, and we're cool, right? I'm on board with you, but I haven't seen that yet. So I'm happy to have the meeting again. Trust me, I want you guys to thrive. I want you to grow. It's a great product. I've seen it. I've met the workers. You know, I'm not anti-union. I like the union, especially people who put their lives on the line. So this isn't a union thing. This is protecting mainland United States against mainland China, and it is now our existence.
But Trump's companies are okay.
I just want to say, outside of the specifics that we're kind of talking about, you know, I understand what you're saying. I just, as far as my testimony is, I take care of my mom. She's disabled and elderly, and with my background and things like that, I've worked really hard to regain a place in society, and I just want to say that BYD has helped me do that, and it's helped me, and it's created a job in the local community where I can take care of my mom.
Yep.
And I don't have to drive to LA to come back.
First of all, two things. One, I appreciate your experience and everything you've been through. I commend you for it. This is the American dream, right? To realize a path forward to victory, even in the face of opposition, resistance, and mistakes in our path, we can actually go and be successful with a good career. The second thing is I appreciate what BYD locally has done. It isn't, like I said, I'm not trying to snow you guys. It's a fantastic facility, right? You guys have a great culture. I can see it there. It's very successful. You guys take pride in the product. It's a beautiful product. So what I would say is, if you want to help me help you, right, go talk to your leadership, your chain of command, whether it's your union or the executives in the company, and tell them to show me the data, right? Not show me the money, but show me not the money. Show me not the money going to China, right? Show me the data that I can feel confident and go fight that fight on the Hill, and because I want this to be real. I want you guys to continue to be here, but I can't go argue about China being the biggest threat while I'm supporting potentially a business that is providing support to mainland China. So prove me wrong. Show me the data. You haven't done it yet. We can have that discussion offline, and I'll go to war for you if that's the case. Thank you.
Oh, good. Steve gets to ask the question. Oh, it's gonna be fun.
Free to go? All right. How you doing, Representative Garcia? My name is Steve Hill.
Yeah, good to meet you, Steve.
Yeah, pleasure. I'll be on the ballot with you shortly. I'll be on the ballot with you shortly.
Okay, looking forward to it. Has that happened before?
I got arrested,
Yeah,
but
that's all right.
hey, for real, seriously, I'd like to thank you and all the ladies in your office, because today I was able to go down and chat with the FBI to get them a statement about my arrest.
Good, all right.
And they promised me that they would get to the bottom of it. And my question is, be patient.
Yeah, let's be civil, guys. It's fine.
Be patient. God damn
Hey,
it. Listen, my question is, as a Marine Corps veteran and retired peace officer, hoorah, super fried. Did you vote to ratify the election?
You're talking about January 6th, but
Correct.
you know I didn't, Steve. So first of all, thank you for your service, both in the Marine Corps and the LAPD. LAPD? Or Corrections, that's right. Thank you for your service. So we talked about January 6th. I'm happy to have that conversation again, right? We obviously voted in the House whether to ratify the election or not to ratify the election. A lot of drama. Obviously, the incident that took place on January 6th was a complete nightmare. That is not how Americans should communicate their either dissent or aggravation with the federal government. I condemn the violence. There's ways to do it, there's ways not to do it, and that was not the way to do it, okay? I put a statement out 2 days before January 6th explaining why I was not going to ratify the vote. By the way, this wasn't unprecedented, okay? In the history of the last 20 or 30 years, pretty much every presidential election has had members of Congress vote to not ratify the election result, including Nancy Pelosi, right? Maxine Waters and one of those things. So it doesn't matter which party is in office, there are people that see something that happened in the election that they thought was squirrely or they weren't comfortable with. Go back to the 4 C's. The first C is the Constitution. In the Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, right? It actually says, by the way, I carry the little pocket Constitution when we're trying to
You might want to read it once or twice then.
my copy back there. It's not a long read, it's not a hard read, but it's not in Old English. But that clause in the Constitution says it's up to the states to determine the time, place, and manner of the elections. Okay? And it's not just up to the states, it's very specific. Read it. We can read it offline. It's up to the state legislators who are in the House and the state Senate to determine how the election is run, the time, place, manner, and location. Black and white. Now what happened in about 5 states, and we only got to vote on 2 of them, and these are the 2 that I voted against, were in the midst of the pandemic, you had secretaries of state, not legislator, governors, not legislators, and attorneys general, who are not legislators, changed the way these states conducted their elections. They decided to do things like 100% vote by mail. They allowed for same-day registration. In some states, they had voter ID laws, which, by the way, 70% of the states actually require voter ID. One of the bills I introduced on that list is a voter ID law that's going to be...
Which is not allowed because the elections aren't federal, jackass.
You have to provide, I don't think California doesn't have it, but you have to provide your
I
ID
think it was
to
their
even
attorney
register to
general.
vote.
We can nail down
You have
the
to give
details.
them last four digits of your social
It's all
security number or
documented.
your driver's license
That
number.
the attorney general unilaterally said we're not going to require ID in this election because of the pandemic. That is unconstitutional. By the letter of law, Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, you cannot have someone outside of the state legislative body change the time, manner, and location of the election.
That's not in the U.S. Constitution.
And the
have already decided on that.
It's based on state constitution.
It's black and white. I put it in every chart like this because we tend to forget, or people want to bring it up because. By the way, this is a fun chart here. Before I go to that, hold on. Before I get
In other words,
what's that?
You didn't question your own.
exactly. And California changed ours.
First of all, we don't vote to ratify, the House elections. The second thing is, California
didn't question their own
had its laws
elections.
on the books before that was determined by the state legislature. So they
The
weren't
ones who lost.
in
Oh, yeah,
fact,
only
on
the ones that
those
lost.
premises.
You did this in conjunction with an attempt to overthrow the government.
Look,
Look
I
at this
talked
guy.
about what happened on January 6th. I condemn it. Go back, Steve. You're playing politics here.
Well, you play politics every day.
So if you took an oath,
Question's over.
so if you took an oath for Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, you would have not ratified either. What took place on January 6th was
How come other veterans got ratified?
it was a complete nightmare. It shouldn't have happened. I condemned it. I was very vocal about that. But this vote, we can't let protesters and violence change the way we believe, especially when it comes to the Constitution. And just because of January 6th, it doesn't change the way we vote. We still have to support and defend the Constitution. It wasn't in conjunction with.
Free and
Right.
fair election, peaceful transfer of power.
Yep.
Therefore, maintaining our democracy.
That peaceful transfer of power entails having that debate on the House floor and allowing members of Congress the ability to not ratify. That is
Not true. Oh, wait till my friend Scott sees this, because I'm not sending video.
No, you're talking about two different things here. I didn't participate in the January 6th.
You guys want to play semantics.
So, all right, so hey guys, spending, real quick, we talked about spending, okay? By the way, thanks Steve for the question, really appreciate
Now,
it.
Jesus help me do shit.
$1.3 trillion is what we were spending in FY18. By the way, 1.3 goes back all the way to 2008. We were spending $1.3 trillion for 15 years, okay? Which actually, most people don't realize, we actually, from the federal government, weren't increasing our spending on the annual budgets. But you see what happens in FY21, we go to 1.4, FY22, 1.5, 1.7, 1.9. And then there's another $10 trillion in the last 3 years that was authorized and appropriated, or not appropriated, but authorized and obligated in addition to these things. So that when we wonder why we have an inflation problem, this is it right here, okay? And this is why this year's fiscal bill is targeting this $1.47 trillion figure, which is still,
not solely based on
20% higher than 1.3.
I can't
and we're
really
starting to come back to
understand how things work, including
So
him.
this is the spending chart in a nutshell. That's what's going on. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good, Mike. How are you? Unfortunately, I have to follow that question, so I'm gonna go a little bit different here.
I'm glad to
It's
be
a
fantastic.
healthcare question, okay? And I've been having a lot of issues trying to get healthcare services through the providers that we have.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly hearing about they just don't have the personnel to deal with this. We're talking about appointment times of 2 to 3 months. I
Unacceptable.
was talking to a doctor in my local provider, and they said that they were down 40 general practitioners just in this one location.
Yeah.
Right? It continues to get worse, and as we need these, these benefits that we're paying for, we can't get them.
Right. Yeah.
And what can be done to? My opinion is, if you can't supply the benefits that we are paying for,
Yeah, it should be a
then
restitution
none of these,
for
none
signing
of
up for these
these
services. Yeah.
providers should be taking on new clients.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's my question to you. What can be done to eliminate this load on the, on the providers that are there? And believe me, this isn't about
Tort
the
reform.
healthcare providers, the
Tort reform,
professionals that are in
malpractice
there.
reform.
They're trying.
This is
they're just overwhelmed.
The issue is primarily being driven right now by the insurance companies. And
Malpractice.
I have visited the hospitals. I've visited the local hospital here in Palmdale, multiple hospitals, St. Henry Mayo down south, the hospitals in San Fernando Valley. In the midst of COVID, obviously, they were dealing with an environment where they were literally seeing dozens of people die on their watch, right? And it was a very traumatic. They were working 12-hour days for years on end. The other thing that the hospitals were challenged with was a traveling nursing program where other states were paying nurses in California sometimes twice as much as they were making here in California to come to their state and provide the nursing service. So you have a workforce that's been completely just overtasked and burned out basically with the pandemic. And you've got this traveling nurse program that's now starting to undo itself a little bit. Some of the nurses are coming back to California, so staffing levels are starting to pick up. The hospitals are just as frustrated with this.
I don't know where they're picking up at. They're not picking up where I am.
The hospitals, at least from the meetings I've had in the last couple of months, say that the nursing staff is starting to pick up a little bit. There are programs now, vocational training for nurses that are getting started here in the Antelope Valley Center for you added that workforce. The challenge the hospitals are having is not just the staffing issues, but they are literally being told they have to provide services, in some cases for free, and then when they go to turn in an invoice for services, the insurance companies are flat out not reimbursing them. So what has happened is the insurance companies are trying to pretend like we haven't just gone through a 25% inflationary period, while the cost of getting medical care in the hospital has actually gone up more than that 25% over 3 years. And so what we're going to be doing is bringing the insurance companies in to testify to us in exactly what is going on. Where is this money going? You like you said, when you sign this policy, it's a contract with the care or the insurance company and the patient. And if I'm paying this money, I should get the service, right? It's not the hospitals, and this is what I want to make sure everyone understands. It's not the hospitals, it's not the nurses and doctors. We did write a bill that allows doctors to go into community hospitals, nonprofit hospitals as well. If they do that, they get some of their medical school costs reimbursed if they go back to a local hospital. So that's a big deal. But that's not going to solve this problem. The problem is with the insurance companies right now. So the short answer is I don't know what is going on, but I know the insurance companies are very healthy while the hospitals are struggling and while the patients are struggling. And that is not okay, obviously. And so we're going to be calling them in. I'm going to be on the heels of the meetings I just had with Palmdale and the AV hospital coming up here shortly. We're going to be going and visiting these major insurance companies.
What are we supposed to do in the meantime? We can't be filling while we're on Parliament.
Yeah.
We can't be waiting months and months and months
I'm gonna
for
talk
appointments.
if he's still here when I'm done. I'll talk to him.
Give me an appointment in a reasonable amount of time.
Because Palmer, just go to Palmer urgent care. They'll take him if it's insurance, especially if he's on Medicare.
On new customers
Right. Yep.
for the money, right?
Yep.
And not be able to supply the services that we already paid for.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. So again, I with this healthcare issue, I know the fundamental principles that are aggravating this, but I don't know what the solution is here right now.
Tort reform.
Some hospitals like Palmdale are for-profit, and they actually do a better job of incentivizing on the hiring and expanding the infrastructure. Some hospitals are not-for-profit, and they're struggling just to make ends meet, and they have different business models and different customer service models as well. So I don't know is the short answer.
I use Kaiser Permanente.
There's your answer.
Yeah.
And we have medical facilities 3 miles from my house. Right? And when I call, they want to send me down to the valley for appointments, and they're
Because we don't have a lot of specialists up here.
8 weeks later.
Yeah, no, I know. I saw it myself. So yeah, we all see it. I don't know what the answer is. You gotta be the squeaky wheel. You gotta call every day. You gotta be a pain in the butt to the hospitals until they prioritize you, I guess. But we can't all do that, right? And so it's heartbreaking. And I don't know what the answer is right now. We're gonna go look at what the insurance companies are doing right now. I mentioned there's jobs looking for people. That's true in every industry. It's not just healthcare. It's true in aerospace and defense. It's just in the healthcare industry that turns into people dying because they're not getting the services they need. So one of the issues is that after the pandemic, people didn't come back to work. Right? We incentivize. It's a weird era. There's really no other era in our nation's history where for 2 years we were incentivizing people to stay home and paying them
Nobody
$7
works for 2 years. That's nonsense.
We used to call those people couch potatoes or deadbeats or bums, and now we sort of enabled it. We spent a lot of your taxpayer money, paying for it. So all of these industries are still suffering from that. They're trying to figure out now how to incentivize people to get back into the workplace. The challenge is right now, if you've got minimum wage workers making $20 an hour, that means everyone above them is going to go up, 15 to 20%. And the hospitals are having a hard time absorbing that, and the insurance companies aren't recognizing those costs. So, it's one of those things that, again, we need more competition, we need more open market capitalism.
I know.
If you guys are having issues with the federal government, with a VA hospital or anything like that, reach out to us, and we can help be a squeaky wheel. And
This is the same issue that happened to the VA a few years back.
it's still happening at VA. It's still happening at VA. Yeah.
Let's see what Betsy asks.
Correct. Right. No. Yeah, that's right.
People are starting to leave.
All right.
It's getting
Next
hot.
question.
Thank you for supporting
All the
Israel
people
100%. You just kind of glanced over that when it was up there. And I know there's a promise from centuries ago about those who bless Abraham will be blessed, and that continues through the centuries. And we had a president that was wise in moving the U.S. Embassy back to.
It never got moved. It's still not there.
See that. As
It's
far
still where it
as my next question actually would be regarding the human trafficking, especially it's related to these illegal grow houses.
Yeah.
It's very devastating. I remember there's a local ministry where she deals with women that are coming out of the sex trade industry, and something like 87% in the 80s, where the law enforcement is now looking at prostitution as being probably about 80-something% are women being human trafficked, and it just isn't. It's predominantly women, but human trafficking covers the children as well as the recent movie has shown. So what kind of support can we show for that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing we can do right now to combat the human trafficking, by the way, we're in one of the highest population density and highest volume of human trafficking in the country here, in not just Southern California, but this 14-5 and 101 corridor right here. There's people go flying through Santa Cruz in the Antelope Valley, literally trafficking human beings. It's a huge problem here. The short answer is we've got to secure the border. This is why the border.
Not the border problem, people.
It's frustrating. It shouldn't be a political thing. It shouldn't be a Trump-Biden thing. It's literally a fundamental security issue. You mentioned Israel. They provide for their security. They don't like people invading their homeland. We have 5 million people that have come across our border unaccounted for. I am the. What's that?
I was saying that you should do what Israel does, right?
No. I'm not suggesting that at all. No. What I'm saying is we have a right as a sovereign nation to defend our borders. A nation without a border isn't a nation, right?
We have the same border we've always had.
I've been to the border, right? One of the saddest things I've seen in my whole life is I was in a. Okay, folks.
Someone asked about his spikes in Texas.
Let me be clear. That's a good point. I'm talking about people who did not go through the process, the legal process to come here, by the way. Okay, I'm the son of an immigrant. My dad immigrated here in 1959 through the legal process with my family.
But
now,
you're
that
opposed
process,
asylum
I still
now.
have an aunt, by the way, who hasn't finished the process. Right, she's in her 60s now, and so the process shouldn't be as long as it is. We need to streamline the naturalization process. But,
Hello.
Well, I'll talk about that. So, okay, hold on, guys, hold on. I promise I'll address the questions. We got to do it through the right process here, okay? So, there are about 7 to 8 things that we can do as a nation when it comes to immigration to be better, okay? We need to streamline the naturalization process. It shouldn't take 10 years to do. It needs to be quicker, okay? Businesses that hire illegal immigrants should be held accountable for doing that, okay? We need to have in my opinion, have a value-added system where people who are coming here to seek employment and be value-added to society should be given accelerated programs and resources to do so, okay? We've got to get an accountability of how many people are actually here illegally, but all of these things, I use the metaphor of a leaking faucet, right? A broken pipe under your sink, okay? If you have a pipe that breaks open under your sink, you don't start mopping up the floor while there's still hundreds of gallons of water coming out of that pipe. you stop the leak, and then you mop up the floor. The problem we have with all of these initiatives, whether it's increasing naturalization, supporting DACA, which I do, and I've given floor speeches about this. Anyone who's truly sympathetic to DACA and Dreamers, which I am, would want to secure the border first, okay? Because what's happening is now we have 5 million people that are here unaccounted for. We don't know where they are. By the way, it's not good for them because they're basically being trafficked and being used as forced labor in these homes with 10 to 15 of them in one address with no accountability, many of them kids. I was mentioning, one of the saddest things I saw at the border was a 6-year-old girl unaccompanied by parents, by any adult, and she was holding hands with her 2-year-old little brother as they came across the border and were taken into. That is inhumane, okay? And what this,
because they're not safe where they are.
There is nothing worse, guys. There is no. This is the great fallacy. There is nothing worse than having an unaccompanied 6-year-old with a 2-year-old coming across the Sonoran Desert.
No, she's right.
Man, these kids were about to die of dehydration and starvation.
Oh, it gets worse.
That is. These particular, I'll tell you the story because I do know the story. These particular 2 kids came from Mexico City. Okay, their parents sold them basically to the cartels. And the cartels brought them across the border. They had a receiving family who was not their family. It was a sponsor who was not related, saying it was their family. Okay? So these poor kids were subjected to the cartels from the migration from Mexico City to the border, dropped off at the border in the middle of the desert, and then walked across. That is inhumane. Now, I'm not saying we should be sympathetic. There are every human being on this planet wants to be an American, and for good reason. They want to come to this country because they should. If you've never been outside of the United States, every human being on this planet wants to be an American. But there's a process to go through to become an American. And I'm not saying we can't support immigrants. I'm just saying if we do it through a legal process. That process needs to be streamlined.
Well, we had that again with the GOP suspect.
So we're going to call the next tickets. Next ticket number is 284158. Next is 284220. We'll then do 284217. And we will then do 284201.
Are they even still here?
It's rigged. Everything's rigged. Feels that way, huh? Feels like everyone says it.
I'll go to my teacher.
We'll get to you.
What? What'd you say?
What's that? It's a national security issue, yeah. I mean,
No, it's also a survival issue.
But it's also protecting the people coming here in these very inconvenient situations. Go ahead, Garrett. Good.
How you doing, sir? Steve Gutierrez. I'm with the National Federation of Federal Employees. I represent federal wildland firefighters. I brought a couple of them here.
Very good.
So these firefighters work here on the Angeles National Forest. They work day and night. As you know, you've supported a bill for them, which is 4861, I think it is. Unfortunately, sir, that bill shuts down within 2 years. It doesn't provide us a pay increase or a pay decrease. What we're looking for is to support the bill that does give us permanent pay that is going to support families for.
Yeah, that's one of the Democrats
bills out there that do that, so I'm happy to support those. If you're not familiar, this goes back to what I was talking about. The effective. What is starting salary right now for your
$15 an hour.
$15 an hour. Yeah. So now you guys heard me. What's that?
We worked during the pandemic.
Right. No, I get it. Trust me, I get it. So you guys heard me say I went to battle for our troops. They were making $11. We're getting them $15 an hour. Right? This is a nationwide national security issue. This is the same type of thing. I honestly wasn't even aware of this issue until the last, call it 9 months. Okay, because of the renewals that are coming up. I sit on the Appropriations Committee. We actually had an amendment come through the Appropriations Committee. I don't know if your guys. Unions talked about this at all, or the folks representing you. And we were offering to have this addressed, take it offline, to have a piece of legislation brought forward to make this permanent
can
and to
feel
get
my
above the
pumpkins
current
Death
levels,
Star.
okay? Now, I actually think this is one of the rare things that will get bipartisan support, okay? So I think it's just an education thing. I think we gotta get the right folks in the room. I know Natural Resources is now looking at this as part of their package going forward. The bottom line is I support it. What you guys?
5169 is the
Jimbo.
It's bipartisanly
5169,
supported.
so
5169.
Are we on that one? We're not on one? Okay.
It's
Of course
the
we're not on that
Wildland Firefighter Paycheck Protection Act 2023. If this
Okay.
doesn't pass, sir, September 30th, our firefighters lose $750 every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They lose half of their money.
And
this is so important.
This is why these budget discussions are so important, right?
then
These are
stop
the
holding
types
hostage.
of collateral damage that we get when we get into either a shutdown or what's called a continuing resolution. When Congress doesn't pass a budget on time, we go into a continuing resolution, and these new programs don't get renewed, and new programs that are authorized actually don't get funded. So these are the victims of these types of things. Same with our troops, same with the postal workers. Every federal agency pays a price for continuing resolution. So you've got my commitment that I'll go to bat for you guys. I'm going to go fight like hell. We'll look at this legislation. You can, there's like 10,000 bills out there, so we don't see them all.
It's mere language to look the one you've already sponsored, just
Okay,
without the 2 years.
that's easy. So it's just a matter of educating other members of Congress, and again, then decoupling this issue away from all the other more sensitive topics. So
Yes,
we'll
sir.
work to do
Love
this.
to work together.
Appreciate that. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
That's very good. They did. Eric Waller, one of those guys, put it forward.
Okay. Good evening.
Hi.
Thanks for the town hall. Recently, my daughter shared some information with me. She told me that she wants to have a hysterectomy because she would never want to have to bear a rapist child. This makes me really sad. I might never have grandchildren because of my daughter's fear. So, do you think that girls and women should be forced to bear rapist babies? And are you in favor, and would you vote for a national ban on abortion?
So a couple topics. First of all, how old is your daughter? 25. So I think, first of all, parents of minors should have a say in any medical procedure.
Wrong. What if the parent is the offender?
As far as the abortion issue, I really don't have a say in it with the Dobbs decision being released. This is a state's decision at this point, okay? If you guys...
There's a national abortion ban that's being proposed.
There's not.
Yes, there is.
There's actually not.
Yes, there
There
is.
is no serious legislation right now proposing...
But
a
serious or
national
not,
abortion
it's
ban.
being proposed.
Right, so...
You might want to go talk to
So
Marjorie.
you guys know where I am on the issue, but
Right,
the
because
reality
these are
is,
the
we go
same
back to
people
the
that were saying that the
Constitution, and
Supreme
we've
Court
just,
would never
in the last
overrule.
year in what,
Go talk
1
to
month,
Marjorie
2
and
months
Lauren.
now, we had the Supreme Court say that this decision is now with the states, okay?
Right.
So, while I am pro-life, and you guys know where I am on this,
Get out of my uterus.
from a constitutional perspective, this is the decision of, and this is a function of the people deciding some of these critical issues right now. It's at the state level, per the Supreme Court. So it's actually unconstitutional for people to chase any regulation from a federal level for this issue.
You would support the right of the state to force women and girls to bear rapist?
I support the 3 exceptions, if that's the question you're asking. But that's not on the docket. That's not a serious piece of legislation at the federal level. The challenge we have is right now we have California's gone to the other extreme, right? They have taken it to the point where you can have an abortion up to 9 months.
That's a lie. But that's a lie, big time.
That is a lie.
Why are you gonna lie?
Right. So
And do you know, it's like, let's start pulling statistics out here, bud.
Go look at the proposition that was on the ballot last.
That is a lie.
Okay. The lawyers.
Get out of my doctor's office.
The reality is California has the most liberal policies when it comes to abortion. There are some
Actually, we
states that
don't.
don't. Okay, so the states need to reconcile this Supreme Court decision right now, not Congress, and that's where I'm at with this.
Okay, can I just add too that I was a young teenager before abortion was legalized. Yeah, I had one of my classmates in junior high school almost died from an illegal abortion. She became pregnant at 14 in 1971 with Mexico. By the way, Mexico abortion is legal now. So she went to Mexico to have an illegal abortion and almost bled to death. She was 14 years old. She didn't have parents. She had brothers who were and her guardians were her older brothers who had a house party, and their friends raped my friend, gang raped her. So what recourse would my friend have?
Adoption.
There are recourses, you can have one. So I don't support illegal abortion either, and there are other options. And in this case, you can go to another state that doesn't allow it if that's what they want to do and that's what they believe.
This would even be a discussion.
So I'll be clear. Let's address this. Very good nuance, because this is a legislative issue that's being debated by the states right now. And I want to tell you where I'm at on this. There are some states that are now making it illegal for citizens of their states to go get an abortion in another state.
Yeah. Fascism at its best.
There's a couple of them, right? I don't. That's not federalism, okay? I'll give you an example. And this is not apples to apples, so pardon the metaphor, but it helps us understand. When I want to go gamble, I go to Nevada, where it's legal, okay? It's kind of legal here in California.
Have one state deny your rights.
Let me just finish.
He talks about the Constitution, he ignores the 9th Amendment.
Let me finish.
Which overrides
When I come
the
back
10th
from
Amendment.
Nevada, I'm not charged with gambling in California because it's illegal in California. So what I'm saying is I don't support states charging people who go to other states to get services provided that are legal in that state and then coming back.
How far are you going to go with the states' rights? I mean, if we make it so that states can determine a woman's rights to make decisions with their doctor, how much farther is it to support something like slavery?
No, she's right, though. See, that's the problem with Cormac. It's a religious.
It's not a federalism issue. This isn't a states' right issue. This is the voters in individual states
The
determining.
9th Amendment
issue.
supersedes or overrides the 10th Amendment.
There's nowhere we can go. This is
Betsy, don't even do it.
In accordance with the Constitution at all times. Period.
Betsy, tell her to get the fuck away from you. I would. Wow.
We can talk offline too. Okay, now.
I want to be part of that conversation.
What?
Rude.
It is rude.
See that coming. Happy to let you know what's happening. I love that shirt. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Keisha Dixon, and I have a concern.
Okay.
So many service members who are single parents or divorced must have a family care plan to designate a legal guardian for their children when deployed.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, these service members return home from war overseas and have to fight a war in family court to be a parent. My question is, what is being done to help service members reunite with their children after deployment?
Yes.
Wow. So I haven't heard this yet. So I'm glad you brought this up. By the way, we hold veteran roundtables to bring. There's a lot of new issues even in the last 6 months. I'm a veteran. I still don't know all of the issues right now, whether it's single parents
This is
or
not a new
active
issue,
duty
though,
right
Mike.
now.
This has been going on for decades.
Why don't we do this? I don't know that issue right now. We will sit down with you and my team, and we'll figure out. I'll have a meeting personally with you to understand what the issue looked like and where the choke points are on this. I'll be honest, I don't really necessarily understand the nuances of what you're saying. So you're saying when they come back from deployment after a parent care plan being implemented, they're having a hard time regaining custody of their own kids?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Let's take this offline because that should not be acceptable. Unless the person while on deployment has committed, a federal felony equivalent under UCMJ and they're being detained or they've got some serious, child protective custody issues, that should not ever be a thing. So can
Remember
we get together and
accountability.
figure out how we can prevent this?
He's all for accountability. Except for when it's his own party.
Yeah, keep going. You guys good? Keep going? Yeah! Feels like it's cooling off, right?
So next we'll be going with 284214. We'll do 284218.
He needs to mix them up because he's got the late ones now.
We'll do 284216.
I think that's what they did. Is they
And we will also do 284219.
picked them going up. So
Everyone's like, shake that thing up because now he's going with later ones.
Shake it, Scott. Shake it. All right, where's our three lucky statistics. Here we go.
They had a lot of their supporters come in late.
Mm-hmm. Although there were some good questions that he it put him on the hot seat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I too am a veteran.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
I forget her name, I know her.
Over 60 years combined service.
Wow.
So, my question is, Congress is messing with command and control issues.
Yep.
I'm wondering why you voted against reproductive care for active duty soldiers, sailors, Marine, and airmen.
Yes.
Reproductive care being abortion.
This impacts
Yeah.
This impacts our military readiness. And additionally, we're wondering why you voted against $115 million for the VA and a veteran military construction.
Which
When
was
did
kind
I
of his
vote against the VA military construction? I don't think I have. If I
He's in the
have,
burn
it
pit.
had some Hyde Amendment implications, which ties to the abortion issue that you're talking about. What you're asking about is military funding for providing abortion.
Travel. No.
Yes, it is. This is military readiness, command and control issues. Our commanders tell us.
But it's federal funding for it. So
No,
what
it's
it
funding
is,
to
I've seen
travel.
it-
You were in the military, you know
Right.
exactly what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. What this is what's called the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment actually is got a long history. How many years back do you think Hyde goes? A couple decades, right? A couple decades where it was bipartisan support. By the way, both Democrats and Republicans supported this in the past. A vast majority of members of Congress supported the Hyde Amendment. What the Hyde Amendment said is that no federal taxpayer dollars in any federal agency, in this case the DOD, can be used on an abortion. Okay?
Just travel.
The reason for it is because it's a collective pool of taxpayer dollars,
They're
and
not
there's
paying
a
for
good
abortion.
chunk of the
They're paying
population
for
that is
travel.
not okay with those taxpayer dollars going towards an abortion.
Yeah.
So this isn't.
I forget her name.
There is no law, there is no legislation that says someone on active duty can't get an abortion. It's just saying it's not going to be paid for by the U.S. federal taxpayer dollars. That's what this is.
Well, that's not what Tommy Tuberville is holding up everything for.
And that's why you guys, the Republicans are holding up some of our top.
Oh, you're talking not the okay. You say command and control. You're talking about
Tuberville.
No. Okay, let me clarify. I'm with you. I got you now. So, right now there is a Senator Tuberville from
Alabama.
This guy is holding up. What he's doing is he's holding up confirmations.
No, he's from the
for
state of
not
Alabama.
only senior executive branch
It's not
officials,
Auburn.
but also
It's Alabama.
flag officers in the military. Okay, this is. Let me, ma'am.
No, he's holding up. You go, girl.
If you let me talk, you're gonna like the outcome of this.
Oh.
Okay.
Dude.
I don't support what he's doing. I understand what he's doing on the issue, right? I get it. I'm with him on the issue, but you don't use something as significant as either paying for salaries of active duty members and the appointments of flag officers. These are admirals and generals, and I've actually had four of my friends, because I'm an old guy, my peers are 06s becoming admirals in the Navy right now. And I actually, last night, literally had one of my best friends call me and say, Mike, I'm probably going to get out because I had to pay for my own move to go to this admiral's job, but I'm not getting paid for it. And so I'm doing the job of an admiral, but not getting paid for it because of Tuberville's decision to hold up all these appointments. So it is affecting rate, and you said command and control, but you're talking about the actual
readiness.
promotion of officers and senior
national
executives,
security
not
issue.
just the cabinet, but other agencies. So, and actually, yesterday I requested my chief of staff in D.C. to set up a meeting with Tuberville. I'm going to go sit down with him and go, hey, buddy, I get it. You're from Alabama, and I understand where you are on this issue. But right now we have record low recruitment and retention in the military. We've got good people right now trying to get promoted to admiral and general who are making about 20% less than they would if you just approve their appointments. So I'm with you on that. We're going to go have that conversation. I get it. People are passionate about issues. This portion one's very sensitive, very emotional across both party lines, regardless of where you are. But you don't use the appointments of senior flag officers as negotiation tactics and other.
For religion purposes also.
Keep going. Please keep an eye out for your ticket. Next is 284-167. Do 284-199. We'll do 284-206. And we'll do 284-176.
I want to talk to that lady down there when she's done. Because my
Anyone coming down with those numbers? Gary, you got somebody over there?
Actually, Steve made a good point. Because of this Tuberville tactic, we don't have a commandant of the Marine Corps officially
or Army
sworn in, and we don't have a chief of naval operations
Yep,
coming up
and Army.
officially sworn in either. So this isn't the right way to do it. There's other ways to get
It's a national security issue.
And head of military preparations.
Yeah, there's 5 of them.
I wanted to congratulate you. You told the American public and your district that they could handle the COVID on their own, that you're not going to help them. So basically, you're responsible for the 1 million COVID deaths. Your family survived. To me, that was the biggest act of cowardice from an Air Force person that you could have done. You know, and your slideshow doesn't impress me much. You know, maybe for 4th graders it would be very impressive. But in reality, you know, you are not a good representative of this district. In my opinion, and you're not a hero, because anybody who flies jets and fights in an area where there's no other jet fighting is not a hero in my book. Because I think you're a farce.
And Mike's not going to say anything much.
What's your question?
Why are you in office? Because you're just
Why are you in office? Is all you guys all said.
I'll answer your question.
Because I was voted in once.
I'm in office because I am in office because the people of the 25th district and now the 27th district voted to
Biden's in
have me
office
in
because we
office.
voted for him too. We have got to get him out. His arrogance is insane.
Let me talk about, by the way, you know, I'm confident that people will continue to do the same. I think it's very important that, by the way, you know, I actually think the country would be better off with more swing districts like ours. You know, this is a district that Biden won by 13%, but you've got a conservative representative.
But you didn't scream fraud in there because you won.
Not just be blindly loyal to the party. So that answers your question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, folks, Steve.
But they said the same thing I did.
Let me address what you said about, first of all, I'm not Air Force, I was Navy, so that's highly offensive to me. But with COVID, I supported the CARES package. I supported PPP, which saved businesses, which allowed employees to keep their job. We actually held workshops to
everyone is up to, they could fight the COVID on their own.
I did not say that. I did not say that. Never said that.
So
You're literally making stuff up right now, sir.
It's 8:39.
I never said that. Never said that. So what I said was, what I pushed back on was making sure that when we closed down for an appropriate amount of time. In my opinion, we kept kids out of school for far too long. It was
But you support homeschooling. What's the difference?
physical health. What I didn't like were the mandates. Okay, I didn't.
There were no mandates except for private companies and the military.
Vocal about this. I was very vocal against mandating vaccines and masks, and the science is now proving that those did not mitigate to the levels that we were.
Not true. And they pick and choose the science.
But keep in mind, the first major tranche of COVID money was approved and authorized and obligated before I was even in office. Okay, I didn't come in office until May of 2020, and I never said you've got to do this on your own. I was actually out here when the Good Samaritans, a volunteer organization from a Midwest state, I believe it is, came into this parking lot and stood up, an auxiliary hospital in this parking lot. I was here when that happened. I saw people dying of COVID because they were having a hard time compartmentalizing COVID from the rest of the challenges that this hospital was saying. So what you're saying is offensive because it's wrong, but you're literally making things up. That's not,
As opposed to you making shit up. He's been making shit up all night.
Hi, Mike. Before you were elected, my wife, my son, myself, and my wife's sister, we all met at one of your get-togethers, and you have pictures in one of your ads, and we're proud of what you've done and who you are. I served in the military, and I don't want to get sidetracked and get all into old war stories, but I did 68, 69 and on. I was a medic. Field hospital. I told you.
He's asking him what his question is.
And it was rough. And my wife was a linguist. She learned German. She's Hispanic.
What's your question?
And my son was a mechanic in the Army. He did 2 tours in Iraq. He got blown up, 80% disabled, but he's back on the road. He's doing it, civilian now. And my daughter took advantage of her plan A and plan B in high school when they asked her what she wanted to be. It was an officer in the military, and she's a captain in the Space Force now. She got accepted
in the Air Force.
She got accepted at U.S. Air Force Academy, Buck McEwen. We were able to. Great guy.
Okay.
But the question is, and I try to preface this, that this is a great country. Yes. And it is. A lot of people are here that don't appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, I saw too many young men die. Personally, ushered them out of this world.
But isn't that what
and some I was able to save, and the ones that I
country?
didn't, I still see their faces. And it's affected me. So I'm continuing to pay the price. And it really upsets me that the big question that's eating me up and has eaten everybody up and has polarized this whole country is election integrity. Okay?
We have election integrity.
Policing, overseeing, and counting the votes properly. Anybody that is coherent and able to think can see what happened on this last election. And locking it up and making it so that we don't
Trump's
have
DOJ said it was the most secure.
representation. Okay? There has to be something done at the congressional level to oversee it. We have to have hope because I tell you what, you got a country full of paranoid voters right now. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican,
we don't have federal elections, guy.
Yeah. And that, by the way, that seems to be the case every election cycle, regardless of who wins. The other side is not really confident in the election. What's your name, sir?
George.
George, thank you. Thank you for your service. Clearly,
hours and months, 2 years, 3 years,
you're a good
screaming,
veteran,
and
and a
nobody
good
tries to
father
overthrow
with
the
your children
government.
serving. You've raised them right. There's both sides of the aisles are guilty of this, right? You know, I don't want to.
No.
This isn't even a Trump Biden thing, but you know, Hillary was complaining that she won the election.
She
when
conceded
she lost,
the next fucking day.
Trump's does the same.
She's
right?
not.
Both,
Oh,
both
good Lord.
sides. And so the fundamental
She
problem
conceded.
is exactly what George is pointing out, which is that both sides of the aisle
The next
don't
day.
have 100% confidence in the way elections are run and the way they're tallied and the way they are recorded. Okay. Now, the question of what can be done at the federal level is a very nuanced one, because when you read the Constitution, I read you the article, right? Article 1, Section
has
4,
no
Clause
say.
1. It's up to the states to determine the manner, time, and location. Now, but we've done things at the federal level in the past, which says you've got to be 18 years old, right? We've done things at the federal level saying that you can, as long as you're 18 and an American citizen, regardless of race, you can vote, which these are fantastic things, regardless of gender. An amendment to the Constitution is to allow black people to vote. An amendment to the Constitution is to allow women to vote. So there have been things at the federal level that have happened. To include, you've got to be a citizen in order to vote.
Yeah. That was to expand voting.
Party, because when I have brought forward legislation ideas in the past, my own party says this is a federalism issue, Mike. This is a state's responsibility, not ours at the federal government. I think that's a cop-out, right? So I introduced the VETA Act, and I don't know if we had it on the slides there, but one of the pending legislation things that we had on the slide there, I think, was the VIDA, which is the Voter Identification Act. And what this bill is doing, we're going to...
We don't have national
we submitted it, 2 weeks ago. We're going to start publicly enrolling this. But this is basically saying if the federal government can mandate you be 18 years old, be an American citizen to vote, we should also be comfortable with the federal government saying, prove it. Okay.
That's not up to the federal government, though.
By the way, in California, when you say that, you're called racist. I've sat down with black community leaders in the Antelope Valley, and I flat out asked them, is this race? Is voter ID racist, Steve? Is voter ID racist? No. Everyone, actually, to say that blacks and Hispanics have a hard time getting an ID is actually racist.
It's poor people too. It's not just colors.
We can get you. We'll get you the full list. There's a lot, but yes. Black pastors. I've said.
We don't listen to black pastors.
There's more than just a black. I sat down. So, ma'am, to answer your question on this one specifically, it was actually the vice president of the NAACP chapter out here that sat down with me and talked about it. No, he doesn't. We'll get you. No, it's not. It's a gentleman. The name exceeds me. We'll get you the full list of names of folks that we've sat down with. There's been dozens of them. Okay. My point is that it's not racist to ask for a voter ID. The reality is that 35 out of 50 states already currently ask for an identification to vote. Okay, so this isn't this major.
So does California.
For registration.
You
for
have
registration.
To your ID to register to vote in the state of California.
To register to vote, you do, but when you vote, you don't have to. Okay. The problem with the election laws, folks, if we can trust me, I want to engage in the dialogue here. So the challenge with the election laws in California, right? By the way, I've proven. I could win in with these election laws. So this isn't me with sour grapes or trying to create an alibi here. We have universal vote by mail, which was done under the auspices of the pandemic. Okay.
We've had vote by mail since the Civil War.
The state does not go through the registration rolls and update them. So when your child moves to Utah to go to school or wherever they're going out of state, you still get their ballot in the mail. When you move, your address doesn't automatically get updated with the registrar's office. So your ballot potentially goes to your old address. How many people in here in the last week, maybe month, have had a piece of mail delivered to your house that wasn't yours?
Not me.
So I am a big fan of, literally happens every day at my house. I get my neighbor's piece of mail because it's inverse digits, right? I love the postal workers. I love my postal service workers who are out there doing God's work. Like 70% of them are veterans, but they're still humans and they're still relying on machines and systems that make mistakes, okay? So when you have universal vote by mail, when you have no registration rolls getting sanitized or updated, especially we've just had the biggest exodus of citizens leave California that we've ever seen, and they haven't updated the registration rolls since that's happened. Okay, that means these ballots are still going out. Okay,
well, it's up to the person to re-register elsewhere.
When someone votes. So the point is that we want fair elections regardless of what size we are. We want our vote to be counted. We want it to be counted once. And we want to make sure that other people's
Apparently
votes
he has no idea how
aren't
county
getting
votes
counted
work.
multiple times or offsetting, our vote that we work for and believe in. So that's fair, and both sides should want that. Election integrity should be that every single vote is counted, and that every vote is real and substantiated identification associated with it. So you'll see that bill coming out. As far as all the nuances on whether it's vote by mail. In-person voting for 20 days instead of one-day election, that's going to be up to the states, and we don't get involved in that at the federal level.
He obviously has no idea how county votes work.
We'll get that to you.
So, sure, I think we'll go with two more. I think we have about 10 minutes left before 9. But
I'll keep going until you guys want to. So
I have to go home.
So next we can go with 284207. Do 284183, 284205,
Pretty soon he's gonna get
and
everybody.
284165.
I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I'm so tired.
I want to go too because he's pissing me off.
We're about halfway done, guys.
I'm a
Yeah.